slow, subtle fade. Brilliant. Welcome to the live theatre launch, a season launch for January to June 2015. We've got a very special bonus for you to start off today's proceedings. We have the cast of Flying into Daylight, who have hot-footed it, literally, all the way from the rehearsal room, which admittedly is the room next door. But here to explain a little bit more is the choreographer on the project, Amir Giles. Thank you.
So we're just going to show you one of the smaller, more intimate tangos from the piece. We're just rehearsing next door, so we're not in costume and we're not going to contextualize it so much with the speeches and the text that happened before and after. But it basically comes at a moment where two protagonists are having a very connected moment as lovers, and it's not a tango they're doing for an audience or something they've learned in a class. They're connecting more as two human beings. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're not going to do any of the text that builds up into it, so it's a bit strict. We don't really have a beginning to this bit, because what begins it is part of the play that we won't show. But it has some live music, so hopefully you'll get an idea of what's in store if you come and see it.
Our autumn show is. We've provided some fanning objects to cool you down after that dance interlude. Flying into Daylight starts next Thursday in the main house here, the 27th, and runs for 3.5 weeks. So please come along if you can. Live has just finished its previous show here, Wet House, which transferred to Soho Theatre. It finished at Soho on Sunday. And I'm pleased to say that our first show in the next season is the follow-up, in a sense, to Wet House, because it's written by the same person, Paddy Campbell, who is here this afternoon with Paul James, who's going to direct the day of the Flymo, and they're both here to tell us a little bit more about the show. They get their own light as well in a second.
I suppose it'd be impossible to have any discussion with you without talking about the success of Wet House. I mean, was that a bit of a surprise to you?
Yes, it was a complete surprise.
Why?
Because when I first delivered a draft of the play, I really wasn't sure if it managed to write a play. I thought it might have just been a series of quite nasty incidents with some dirty gags thrown in, but it turned out it worked quite well as a play, and then obviously it was successful up here, but couldn't be entirely sure. It was very much based in this region, how that would transfer to other audiences. We first went to Hull and down to London, but the response down there was phenomenal as well, which was very
right. Phenomenal piece.
Couldn't be happier.
Phenomenal piece. Let's talk a little bit about Day of the Flymo. What is it about?
It's about a 13-year-old boy and his family, and he is about to enter the care system, and he steals a lawnmower, in a nutshell, and it looks at. I've worked in a children's home for the past 8 years. and the decisions around kids entering the care system is far from black and white and can be very subjective, and it looks at the kind of weird politics around that, and families trying to cope with going through that process. It sounds very bleak. Hopefully it's got some.
No, it's got lots of comedy in there. Yes, definitely.
Some laughs as well.
It's going to be performed by members of the U Theatre, supported by a professional cast of, hopefully, ex-U Theatre members who are now professional. So it should be quite an interesting mix of young and emerging artists actually performing this quite challenging play. So do come along and see it. What about the future for you, Paddy, then? I mean, all this success with Wet House and that. What's happening like?
Yeah, well, I need to write another 2 plays for you guys with with my residency. So, well, the 2 plays I'm working on for live. One is called the Blessed, which it looks at an infamous loyalist terrorist who gets released in Northern Ireland after the Good Friday Agreement, and his catastrophic attempt to deal with family life and the new social and political order in Northern Ireland. The second play is called Flag of Convenience, and it looks at merchant shipping and a situation which arises a lot in merchant shipping where ships are owned under flags of convenience, and the owners of the ships are practically impossible to trace. And often what happened has happened in the town quite recently, crews of these ships, when they get found unseaworthy, just get abandoned and are kind of stranded in this situation with no hope of getting paid. Wow. And dependent on local charity, and it's a play based around that situation.
Busy lad, 2 big plays there to write.
Yeah, and
also, since Playhouse, and you said particularly
Playhouse.
No, sorry,
that would be
Playhouse.
Completely different.
Sorry. Since this Wet House, you've sort of had sort of approaches from TV companies and that. Has that been people knocking at your doors?
Yeah, there's since its London show, I've had a lot of interest. There's companies interested in adapting that for a TV series, and other ideas.
Yeah.
Other ideas I've got. So yes, there's been a lot of all that, which is.
And you're also thinking of being a sort of full-time writer. That's the next move now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I've given my notice in the children's home. So
okay.
So yeah, there's that's the plan. There's no going back now.
Yep. Well, that's Paddy. Please come and see the show. It's going to be great. I'm very excited to be directing it. It's on between the 8th and the 11th of April. Be there or be square. Thank you very much.
You may have noticed that next year, 2015, is also the year of the general election. It hasn't gone unnoticed here at Live Theatre. We've specially commissioned a play called What Falls Apart by Torben Betts, which is going to be directed by Max Roberts. So here to tell us a little bit more about the whole thing is Torben Betts and Max Roberts.
I thought we were going to get a little light like those guys got. That was kind of cool. I am Max Roberts. I'm the Artistic Director of Live Theatre. And this is Torben Betts, who is a writer I've been aware of for a while. And I saw a sort of great review of one of his plays called Invincible, which was produced at the Orange Tree Theatre in Richmond. And Graham, our creative producer, we had a chat about it, and Graham went down to see it and said it was a really interesting show. So I went down to see it when it transferred to St James's Theatre, which is a lovely theatre in Victoria. And I really, really enjoyed it. And one of the reasons I enjoyed it was that I thought it spoke to today very much so. And it was about things that I'm really interested in. It was about class and politics. And it was also extremely funny, which is one of the requirements in my old age I require when I direct plays, that I've got to have a bit of a laugh, as you'll probably have seen with Paddy's play, even though it was quite dark in its subject matter. So we met, and then serendipitously I got a letter from Torben, and it was addressed from Berwick. And I thought, oh God, he must live in Berwick. And I found that to be. So I thought it was great that we had a writer that I really liked, who was new to the company, who lived in the region. So we met, and we seemed to get on, and we decided to do a play. And as it was the general election, that seemed to be a possible starting point. Can you take over now and tell everybody how it's going? We haven't seen each other for about 6 weeks because I've been in rehearsals. So how are you getting on?
Do you mean with the play or with my life in general?
Well, you can talk about both, actually. How is Berwick these days?
Yeah, it's always a bit tougher in the winter than in the summer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully I have plays going on to get me out on this occasion.
So how are you getting on with it?
The play, yes, I mean, it's, well, you've read the first draft, it's kind of getting there. It's, it's basically about a Labour politician who's having a midlife crisis. He's mid-50s. He's from a socialist background. He lost his seat in the 2010 election. He's very upset about how the current regime are destroying the whole of our country, basically, as most of us probably are aware of. But his problem is that he voted for the Iraq War. He's obviously a fictional MP. He voted for the Iraq War in 2003 and can't forgive himself for what he did, which he didn't agree with it, but like many MPs at the time, he kept his mouth shut with the hope that he might advance his career. Anyway, when we meet him in my play, it's in a hotel in Newcastle. He's in the middle of the campaign, so it's set in the future in March, April of next year. He's got a bit of a drink problem now, sexually restless. He's been married for 30 years. And then, without giving too much away, he kind of comes into contact with a very beautiful younger woman who is almost sent as if by the devil to lure him to his damnation. I think that's a way of saying it without giving away too much of the plot. And also there's a younger barman there, so it's a three-hander. He's a local lad who is he's a teetotal and has been an alcoholic. Bit of a link with Wethouse there, and so basically it's a three-hander. It's about the crisis of the left, which a lot of my plays the last few years have been about. Really, it's an analysis of kind of where the political opposition in this country or anywhere has disappeared since Blair, and what we're going to do about it.
I think that's a fairly accurate summation of the first draft. I was very keen that with the election coming up, that we actually tried to confront that issue, particularly in this part of the world. All of us here at Live were very, very taken with the fact that 90% of the electorate in Scotland went out to vote recently at the referendum, and one sensed that they actually went out to vote because they felt they were really going to vote for something. They were going to actually affect something. And I don't know what the statistics will be at the next election, but I suspect it won't be anywhere near 90% of the turnout. And so one of the things we're hoping the play also addresses is that people will vote if you give them something they think they can vote for and will affect change. And I'm really hoping that the play, there's a first draft, and Torben and I are going to meet and talk and meet some local MPs after this next play that we're directing opens, and try and piece out one or two of the issues that we think are going to be particularly pertinent as we lead up into the election. And so although we've kind of agreed that a second draft might be sometime either at the end of this year or early next year, it's a sort of piece that I want to keep fresh and topical so that we can literally respond to the issues and concerns of that time leading up to the election next year. That's all. Is that everything covered, Jess?
I don't know. That's not what I was doing.
As Master of Ceremonies, is there anything you want to add, like the dates or anything, please?
Oh, well, the dates, yeah, of course. Yeah. The dates are, it's on page 9 of your brochure. The play runs from the 22nd of April to the 16th of May, so it overlaps with the little thing called the general election, which is the week before it closes. So, yeah, please come and see.
Yeah, and let's hope we'll all be cheering as opposed to crying that week after the election. Thanks very much.
Our third main house project for the next 6 months of 2015 is it's going to be a celebration of the life and work of Julia Darling, and it's called Rendezvous. For those of you who remember Julia, she was a writer in residence here at Live from 2001 to 2003. She was a fantastic presence in the building. Julia had a theory that there were two types of people in the world. There were drains and radiators. And Julia was very definitely a radiator. She was a great encourager of other talent. And what we've decided to do, because next year is the 10th anniversary of Julia's very untimely death, we want to commission young and emerging writers and team them up with directors to give them a main house opportunity to showcase their talent, and we're going to ask them to draw on Julia's work as the source of inspiration for the pieces that they're going to present to us. And that's going to happen at the end of May. And we're also working with our friends at New Writing North for an evening of celebration of Julia's work. Julia had a most fantastic career as a playwright, a novelist, and a poet. And she worked with a number of groups around the Northeast who will be coming back together again for that evening celebration, including the Poetry Virgins and Proud Words. And New Writing North will also be unveiling a Julia Darling Travel Fellowship on that evening. And so if you look on the Live website and the New Writing North websites over the next couple of weeks, we'll be revealing more details about the whole project, so please check those out. Those dates again are at the end of May, going into the beginning of June. And as you know, and as that project is part of a talent development scheme that we have here at Live, we're very interested in nurturing talent, and we largely do that under the umbrella of the Live Lab series of events, which are events that take place usually in this space, the studio space. And in January, we're relaunching Live Lab. We're going to have a scratch night. And here to tell us a little bit more about the whole Live Lab umbrella and the new rebranding is our creative producer, Graham Thompson, and the empty space is Natalie Carroll. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. So Live Lab is, as Jez was just explaining, is the artist development thread of the work we do here at Live Theatre. It's a programme of opportunities and events designed for writers and theatre makers to bring their talent and skills to us, to explore their ideas for development, for nurture, and to bring their work, their brand new ideas, their work to us first, and importantly to share it with our audiences. 2015 is a very exciting year for Live Lab because we're remounting it. We have this very, very exciting new little logo here. And we're relaunching this specific part of our artistic programme. And how we're doing that is we're bringing together all the existing events and opportunities we have. So our 10 Minutes 2, our Scratch Night, our Live Writers Group, our courses, our comedy courses, our poetry and spoken word events. And we're bringing them all together under this banner to give them a more solid identity. And then also through the course of 2015, we are going to be introducing some new opportunities and some new ways of engaging with artists from the region and beyond to not only increase the work we do here, but also increase that canon of new work which is available to audiences here in Newcastle. So what we're going to be doing in January, in the last week of January, we're kicking off with a Live Lab week. We're going to start on Sunday the 25th, and that's going to be a 10 Minutes 2. And then on Thursday the 29th, we're going to have a scratch night. And then on Friday the 30th, we're going to have a launch party. I'm just going to quickly talk about 10 Minutes 2, and then we come back to scratch nights. 10 Minutes 2 is a playwright-led event, which we launched early last year, I think July actually. And what we do is we have a theme, and we invite playwrights to create a 10-minute play, which responds to that theme. And then over the course of a weekend, well, prior to that, so we speed date those writers we selected with directors, and we throw them together for an intensive weekend of a day's rehearsal and then a few technical rehearsals, and then we perform them that evening. We had one, as I say, in July last year, which was a really exciting event, and we got to engage with some fantastic new writers and see some real new talent, which is emerging in Newcastle. And we're hoping to do the same here in January 25th, which the theme, which we're launching today, is going to be Take Off. So if you are any budding writers in the audience, you can head to our website afterwards and check out all the details about how to submit your play. The second event in that week is going to be Scratch Night, and we're joined here, as I say, by Natalie from The Empty Space, who we jointly curate Scratch Nights with. So, Natalie, do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so briefly, the reason, I suppose, that we Live in the Empty Space sort of came together just over 3 years ago now to start kind of creating Scratch Nights together was to, I suppose, allow a platform for work that was still in the process of being created that would probably end its life being something that could be described as new writing, but probably didn't start its life in a sort of traditional new writing way. So it didn't start necessarily with a script. So often it's kind of devised work, or it's work that's made a different way, but ends up with sort of glorious script at the end of its lifetime. And it's about creating an opportunity for Live's audiences to develop a relationship with work kind of early on in its stage of development. We also are aware that we programme a combination of work from within the region and also work from further afield, which is partly about sometimes those works end up then coming in and being part of Live's programme. It's quite a good way to introduce artists from outside the region into Live. And it's also about creating a dialogue that's beyond the work that's happening here, so that artists here and artists from elsewhere are sort of having a peer relationship. So we've been doing that for 3 years now. The critical thing about Scratch is the way that we kind of manage the feedback process, which is there is written feedback, which is sort of wonderfully sort of pulled together, and the audience are incredibly generous in the way they give that feedback. But I think more importantly, at the end of every Scratch Night, we take the audience down to the Undercroft and we ply them with wine, and encourage them to have a chat with the artists and ask them questions and give feedback and that kind of thing. And we used to facilitate those conversations, but I find we don't really have to anymore, because there's a very there's sort of a core audience that come back and back to kind of Scratch Nights, and they now do it. They get on and have those conversations. They've kind of learnt to interact with artists in a different way, which is a really nice thing to have seen happen over that period of years. It's also worth mentioning that the Live Scratch, I've been to a lot of Scratch Nights kind of all over the country in my time, and Live Scratch is really unusual in that it is attended by audience members. It's not purely an industry event, which makes it really valuable, and we get that feedback time and time again from artists saying it was so useful to actually be able to have those conversations with audiences, with people who might actually come to see the show at the end of the day. We have, to be specific, we have 2 Scratch Nights coming up in the next season. We have one on the 29th of January and one on the 21st of May. Excellent. And we're still kind of finalising the details of who will be in all of those, but just to sort of trail a couple of them from the northeast, we do have Kate Fox will be performing at them, and also Precious Cargo Collective. And from outside the region, we have Annie Siddons, who's coming in May, who wrote Rapunzel for Knee High, a fantastic writer kind of working out of London. And then a Texan theatre maker called Greg Wohead, who was, I saw his show Hurtling in the summer, and it was shortlisted for a Total Theatre Award. He's a fantastic artist, so really glad we can bring him here. Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a good year for the whole Live Lab programme. And as I say, we do have some new events and some new opportunities coming up, more of which we will be talking about at our launch party, which is on the 30th of January, which we'll be releasing some details about very, very soon. So keep your eyes peeled. I think we're all done, Jess.
Okay.
Yeah.
As if to show that the Scratch Nights means a lot to us here at Live, and that a lot of the stuff that we develop comes back as visiting theatre full productions to us. We've got 9 pieces of visiting theatre in the next season, and 3 of those pieces, Donna Disco, Fat Man and We Can Be Heroes, all started in this very room. In fact, We Can Be Heroes did its first ever showing at the end of the first week of development on this very stage. And so we feel it's very important that we try and show our loyalty to the pieces of work and the artists that come and perform at our Scratch Nights. But also our audiences are really interested in, as Natalie was saying, that they engage with the artists at a very early stage at the creation of something, and then they come and see the final product when it comes back as a full production. We've got another couple of trailers to show you of visiting companies that are coming in the next season, as well as the companies that we have at Scratch Nights. We have developed a lot of relationships with companies around the country, and the first trailer we're going to see is our friends from Leeds, the Paper Birds, who've been to see us quite a few times with their productions here at Live. And they're bringing back a very hard-hitting but really interesting piece in the new year called Broke. And here's the trailer.
Okay, great. It's recording. Okay, just going to put that down. And
you see it on the streets, houses, the schools, government white.
people are living outside the name. Everyone's struggling. That's really lovely.
Halloween for food.
None of us are blameless. We don't like Coca-Cola or Starbucks or Malone.
Who am I meant to? Bank, credit card, family, friends.
I can't afford to get the bus every day. We'll get the train home. We'll travel to see my boyfriend.
I have to use my credit card for essentials.
I feel like the bare minimum. I have a life to live.
I used to think one box of cheese and credit card for a meal. And we can't afford a holiday abroad.
I have 5 friends from a relative I met once who I don't think knew my name.
I'm lying there thinking that
I've never felt more stupid.
it's my own fault.
I felt like a failure.
I felt like a failure.
I have a life to live and a life to
I
live.
like it.
Okay, so that's Broke. The dates for Broke here at Live are the 10th and 11th of February. And that's going to be followed in March, the 3rd and 4th of March, by Fleabag, which is written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Fleabag was a really successful one-woman show that was at Edinburgh last year. And it's our partners of Soho Theatre. They brought us Blink last year, the Phil Porter play, which was really successful. And here's the trailer to tell you a little bit more about Fleabag.
Fleabag is about a woman dealing with an onslaught of modern challenges on a sort of daily basis, but particularly in relation to these 3 days in her life when everything seems to be spiralling out of control. It's about people missing each other and miscommunicating, and the desperate kind of clawing need to feel like you belong somewhere.
The first time I saw the first bit of feedback, Phoebe showed it to me when we were rehearsing another show, and she absolutely had me on the floor. I was shaking and crying with laughter, and I couldn't believe she'd done it. It was so honest, it was so brutal.
It started as a 10-minute short show, and it made Vicky laugh a lot.
The actor that I respect most, and think is just the best.
The moment you walk through the door, you think, oh, you want to give this kind of adrenaline junkie audience what they've come here for, and you want to give them the shot on the arm that they're looking for. So yeah, we're really galvanised and powered up and ready to be really rude and loud.
We're on from the 7th of May, and it's just a 3-week run, so we really hope that people that haven't seen it yet will be able to catch us.
So you should completely ignore those dates, because that 3-week run was really successful, and now it's going to tour around the country, and it's going to come to us, as I say, on the 3rd and 4th of March. And as well as our national relationships and partners, we're proud and honoured to have really strong links with local theatre companies too, and we've had a long-standing relationship with the Oaken Clasp Theatre Company, and it's my great privilege to ask to come to the stage now Katrina McHugh and Louisa Young.
No, you can sit there. Musical chair.
There was no music. We needed Julian with the music there, the old musical chairs. Katrina, tell us a little bit about Jumping Puddles.
Jumping Puddles is about 2 young sisters, Anna and Grace, and it's about them being fast-tracked to adulthood. And this is to do with, in some part to do with the illness of their mother, and other issues that the 2 young women are facing is quite universal in terms of being bullied or kind of having to deal with unwanted approaches from other people. Yes, so that's kind of a little bit about what it's about.
And I understand that for this particular project you've been working with Frantic Assembly.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that connection?
Which is, yes, and when we were thinking about coming today and sort of talking about how that happened, I'm a big fan of Frantic Assembly and had been to see Blackwatch and Beautiful Burnout, and one day, and I just really thought, wouldn't it be great if we could create a piece of theatre in that style and have it here in the Northeast. And we work with people who have limited engagements in the arts, and they love the shows that Oaken Clasp Theatre Company creates, and I knew that they would love Frantic Assembly's kind of work. So I just emailed them and said, I think you're brilliant. What about working with us? Go, well, send, see what would happen. And they emailed back and went, we're really interested in working with you. We like the look of your theatre company, what you do and who you engage with, and we would really like to work with you. Hurrah! So, yeah, and it just started then. I was trying to find the email before I came to go, what if did I write? Because I just went, yeah, send. And then and we, in this particular project, as people may or may not know, but we collaborate with all of the groups that we work with. And this one obviously is particularly young women 13 to 19, and we worked with 162 young women, and for the very first time the company has moved out of the region, and we collaborated with young women's groups via the Youth and Play Service in Liverpool, and we did what we normally do, which is listen to what young people have got to say and groups got to say. But because we were working with Frantic Assembly, we took Frantic Assembly to Liverpool and through to the groups in the Northeast, and they used movement to look at their lived experiences and have conversations about things that were important to them, which was a massive first for the company. Not sure whether it would work, absolutely worked. Young people who would go, I'm not doing any of this, and who are you? We're all doing the Frantic Assembly kind of movement. And we've just done a residential where we fed back. We had groups from Liverpool come up, the North East group come up, Louise was there as well. And we showed them the storyboard and we got all their feedback on the storyboard, and they went, yes, we agree with that, no, we don't agree with that. And we all slept overnight in the West End of Newcastle on a floor, 40 young people and 10 youth workers, and had a brilliant weekend. And the young people now absolutely get don't know the name Frantic Assembly, but do absolutely get the style of it. So when we take the show back to Liverpool and in the North East, they're just going to know it, and they're going to then go, we know Frantic Assembly. So that's kind of...
Louisa, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Open Clasp and how you got involved in this project?
Yeah, so I got the bursary for Assistant to the Writer, and it's been just amazing, like, to see a play come from the inception all the way being developed to nearing the end now, and it's just, I was saying before, I don't know where I would have got this opportunity to do this. It's just been fantastic, and also I think particularly with Open Clasp, because it works with so many different people, there's different inputs, and there's a real honesty that you learn about in feeding back to the people who've inspired the play. Does this sound right? Things like that just have been so valuable to learn.
And what do you think the crucial things you have learned from the process so far?
So far, how important everyone's input is, and I think as well, because it's Open Clasp socially, being a bit more conscious now, because this plays work with sort of teens, young women who are of that age, and now I'm like nearing 25, I'm starting to feel a responsibility and a protectiveness to that generation of young women, and it's making me, so that's something not to do with data necessarily, but it's made me more socially conscious in the time that I've worked with Open Clasp.
Great. And Katrina, do you want to explain a little bit more about the bursary scheme?
Yeah, there's 7 bursaries involved in the project. We've got 7 young women. We have now a memory test. So we have assistant to the writer and director, set designer, sound designer, lighting designer, and facilitator. So, and they've been wrapped around the whole project, and they're involved in everything. So we had a big production meeting yesterday where all parties were involved in it, and bursary people with the and they're involved in the whole process. They'll be coming on the tour with us as well, and we would, in theory, like to then continue that relationship. And Louise, and it is brilliant having, I'm 51, it's brilliant having all the bursaries with us in the workshops and with all the groups as well. And I think Louise's input into the script has been just invaluable, because she's kind of looking at it, even though she's older than the young women we're working with, and kind of going, oh yeah, no, I think that's right, and consult back with it. So yeah, no, it's brilliant having the bursaries and forces. So we've had them for a whole year. Well, when we get to the end of the project, it'll be a year.
And for people who are going to come along and see the show, what sort of things can they expect?
I think that what I can say at this moment, we're in the second draft of the new draft of the play, and I think people have read it and are kind of extremely moved by the draft of the script. And I go, if they're moved by the draft of the script, and that's without Frantic Assembly, that's without the sound, that's without the set, I think it's going to be incredible to come and watch. So I'm really, really excited by it. And I think it's not necessarily a play about young people. I think it's a play that tells a story that we all can relate to and engage with and say, that's me. So I think we're going to see a great piece of theatre.
And I know that it's obviously coming to life, but do you want to mention some of the other places where you might go on tour with it?
Well, we're kind of around the region. So we're in youth and community centres around the region. We're in ARC, we're in Washington Arts Centre, and we're going to Liverpool for a week. So we're in the Everyman for 4 shows. In the Everyman, so Jill, our creative producer, sitting there, so I'm going, is that right? We're going. And we start touring on the 9th of February. And so we'll be going in any venue at all. Obviously, like people may know, is that, you know, we're looking to access this piece of theatre, as you would see it in live theatre, in a youth centre in the middle of a housing estate. You come to see the same experience. And we'll reach about 3,000 people on the tour. Maybe a bit more this time, because we're going over to Liverpool as well.
Great.
My hometown.
I know it's playing here for a week, and it's the combination of a long association that we've had with
long
each
time,
other.
from the very beginning.
I don't know how many
Well,
years.
we set up in '98, and we had that relationship with Live from the very beginning, and our communities went, Live, this is ours, and they went, oh yeah, this is my seat. This is before it got made. This is my seat. This is where I sit. And we had a very tradition of opening here and closing here, and we still have that. I think we're more of a closing here now.
Sure.
And it's been all the way through. And Julia Darling was the first person who told me I could write.
Great. Well, what a great symmetry to the whole thing.
Yes.
Thank you very much to Katrina and Louisa. Just to say that Jumping Puddles reaches the culmination of its tour. The final dates on the tour are here at Live. And obviously you'll have to come and fight for your seat because there's lots of people who've already got their seats. On the 24th to the 28th of March. And as you know, Live's education and participation work is a key feature of the company's activities. So here to tell us a little more about what's in store for the early months of 2015 is Phil Hoffman, the resident drama worker here at Live.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to tell you quite quickly about two exciting young people's projects which are taking place in March, just before the Flymo, because we've got a very busy period in the education department in March and early April. This year it seems like a mini sort of education season actually. So we've got the first piece, which is on the 5th of March. It's an evening performance in this studio. It's Right Stuff, and it's the 4th year Right Stuff 4, where we've worked with a secondary school from between the ages, years 8 to 10, so that's 12 to 15. This year's slightly different. The school we're working with pupils from years 8, 9 and 10. And essentially it's a playwriting programme for secondary school pupils. It takes part over approximately a year with initial workshops within the schools which took part in May. And then we've just literally 2 hours ago finished the final workshop of the 8 workshops that take place where we develop skills within playwriting. There's a residency over 4 days where the writers individually will work with a dramaturg to create their final pieces. Then an editing process in January, and then the final plays, as I say, will be rehearsed and will be on as script in hand performances on the 5th of March at 7:30 p.m. We use professional actors who perform the pieces, as well as actors who are in training and from the youth theatre as well. We don't know what the plays are as yet because they are created during the residency, although we do have some good ideas. Good range of sort of from quite comic pieces to very dramatic, sort of quite serious psychological dramas in the melting pot at the moment, which might come to fruition. So that's Right Stuff. It'd be really great to see some press along there to have a look at those things. We have had people come along and see that, and it goes down really well. They will also then go on to do a best of Right Stuff performance later in the year, which is full production. The second education and participation piece is called Overload, which is our youth theatre presentations piece, which is taking place on the 14th and 15th of March at 7:30 in the main house. And this happens, it's an annual thing, it happens every single year, where all of our groups from the satellite groups in the east end of the city and the west end of the city in Kenton School, as well as our in-house groups, which range from 11 to 12 right the way up to 17 to 25 groups, produce a piece of work. It's called Overload, and it's looking at and discussing the pressures that are on young people in today's sort of modern, ever-changing society. It seems that things are moving faster and faster and getting more and more pressurised for young people. The idea for the project came from a consultation group, which we have of young people who come in and discuss what they want the project to be about, what they want the shows to be about. It's a really eclectic mix of pieces. We have 6 on one night and 5 on the other. It's always absolutely packed with 250 to 300 young people participating in the performances over the 2 days. Really exciting to have that amount of young people in the theatre, and they bring a real buzz with them. And it'd be really great to have as many people along as possible to see the shows and maybe get a few reviews as well. We have had a few reviews recently, and we'd like to get more people in seeing the work that we're producing in the education department. So that's about it really. I hope to see you all there.
Thanks very much, Phil. It just remains for me to say a big thank you to you for coming today. Also, just to point out one or two things that we haven't had time to mention in great detail, but it's the Jumping Hop Club's 30th birthday in 2015, and we'll be part of those celebrations. So please check out the acts that we've got, their usual eclectic mix of Americana, alt country, and blues and roots music dotted throughout the first 6 months of 2015. And also, we're going to have quite a bit of comedy in this space. Gavin Webster is bringing his Northumbrian Academy here in the new year, and also there's a bunch of surrealists who go under the name of Silly Billy's Comedy. Jack Gardner. Jack is going to be a big star, I think, and we're really pleased that Jack's been working at Cumberland Arms, but he's also going to bring his club here. So if you're interested in the sons and daughters of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer, please come and see the Silly Billies, because I think they're going to be really good. And they're going to be really big. And we'll also we've got Kate Fox, who's bringing a Radio 4 show here, and we're going to be doing some recording for that in the main house in the new year. So, as I say, everybody you've seen today is available for press interview immediately afterwards. So I'd like to thank all of them, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming to see us, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.